More and more, it's looking like Lucasfilm hates men. There, I said it. So many times over the course of the past year, Doomcock and other leading voices in the fandom menace have expressed disgust with and loathing for Rian Johnson for what he did to Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. But as Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures makes revoltingly clear, the real culprit was never Rian Johnson. No, Rian Johnson was simply a hired gun. Far from making a personal statement with this franchise-killing movie, as has been widely reported, Johnson was following clear directions from Kathleen Kennedy and the other man-hating vipers in her Lucasfilm story group nest to degrade, marginalize, and kill every decent white male in Star Wars, starting with Luke Skywalker. The abuse of Luke Skywalker has been discussed and analyzed thoroughly over the past year and a half. The way that The Last Jedi turned him into a bitter, manatee-suckling, cowardly traitor has been well documented. They took one of the most beloved heroes in history, a guy who would rather die than turn to the dark side, who risked his life to redeem one of the darkest villains of all time, and retconned him into a bizarre parody who considered murdering his nephew because he had dark side tendencies, then got his ass kicked by that trainee who destroyed his Jedi Academy and made him run away to an island. They did the same to Han Solo, turning him into a deadbeat dad who ran away to become a pirate again, but was foiled by the fact that he forgot where he parked his fucking spaceship, and then they finally had him die like a punk by walking right into a lightsaber. And the rest of the white males in the Star Wars sequel trilogy are either evil, incompetent, or belittled by superior and disapproving female leaders. 2 movies might be flukes, you say. These things don't prove that Lucasfilm hates white males. Well, there is the fact that Han Solo in his own movie gets his ass handed to him repeatedly by the Khaleesi, betrayed, rescued, beaten, outsmarted, and robbed in his own movie. That's about as belittling a treatment as any movie hero has ever received in his own film. But the real proof of Lucasfilm's misandry is contained in this latest episode of Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures entitled Princess Leia vs. Stormtroopers. This vile, lying piece of revisionist feminist propaganda is perhaps the most succinctly repugnant expression of Lucasfilm's hatred of men yet. So blatant, so naked, that Doomcock for the first time is moved to the point of actually hating Star Wars. Not merely 1 or 2 films, but the entirety of it, to the point where I am not only out of fucks to give about Star Wars, but I actually want to see it crash and burn. For those of you who haven't seen this animated abomination, I will describe exactly how this propaganda violates canon deliberately and maliciously, and why this is, for me, the final nail in the Star Wars coffin. It opens with Leia in her prison cell aboard the Death Star, as seen in the original classic Star Wars. As in the film, Luke opens her cell and tells her, "I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm here to rescue you." And in this retconned perversion of Star Wars, instead of astonishment, gratitude, or relief, this Leia gives him this bored look, as if to say, "You poor deluded boy, as if I need you for anything." And the rest of this short cartoon relentlessly mocks Luke and marginalizes Han and Chewie, treating all of them as useless fools, while the true hero of the moment, Leia, proceeds to overcome their incompetence and save them all, violating the clear and indisputable canon as presented in George Lucas's masterpiece. It cuts to the corridor outside her cell, perverting the original scene in order to belittle the males and elevate Leia to wannabe epic levels. As in the original film, Han and Luke are holding off the stormtroopers, but in this cartoon, instead of blasting a hole in the wall to gain access to the garbage chute and leading them into it, a clever bit of business that makes Leia heroic without marginalizing or belittling her companions, In this cartoon version, Leia takes Luke's blaster, stands in the middle of the corridor, blasting away at stormtroopers like John McClane in Die Hard. Everyone stares at how badass she is as she pants in a rage in the middle of the corridor. Then, when the stunned stormtroopers resume firing, then she blasts open the wall, throws Luke inside, grabs Chewie, physically tosses this 7-foot behemoth that is 3 times her weight into the hole, then kicks him in the ass to shove him through, then leaps in herself, a really obnoxious look on her face. In another violation of a classic sequence, this cartoon makes mockery of the facts and of Luke Skywalker in the classic grappling and swinging across the gap scene. In the original, Luke and Leia are fleeing from the stormtroopers and the door shuts behind them, stranding them on the edge of a chasm. Stormtroopers begin firing on them from a higher vantage point on the other side. Luke hands Leia the rifle, and as she very capably holds the stormtroopers off with covering fire, even killing one, Luke uses a grappling hook on his stolen utility belt to pick her up and swing her across the chasm. That's what really happened. But in this loathsome revision, Luke is incompetently tangled up in the grappling line, looking goofy, helpless, and impotent. Leia slaps him out of the way and starts shooting the stormtroopers. The geniuses at Lucasfilm, however, failed to resolve the situation, cutting away to Leia pulling other acts of heroism, and no wonder. These idiots on the Lucasfilm story group, by tangling Luke up in his line for comic effect, have left no possible resolution to the scene. The grappling hook is hopelessly tangled, they can't get across, and eventually they get captured and executed by Vader. But hey, as long as Luke is belittled and bitch-slapped by Leia, that's all that matters. Mission accomplished, right, Lucasfilm? Then, they have Leia personally leading the charge against the Empire on Hoth, which never happened. And they can't resist putting Luke on the back of Leia's speeder bike, having him make a goofy comic relief sidekick face as Leia heroically steers. Then, at the medal ceremony, Leia smirks because after all, it was all her, and Luke, Han, and Chewie were worthless tagalongs. Our contempt and loathing for the classic male characters of our youth is palpable in every frame of this cultural pornography. This is the garbage that Disney is feeding to the next generation of Star Wars fans. Well, they can have it. This shit isn't Star Wars. This shit is the most pernicious form of feminism, the kind that is so baseless and insecure and choked with hatred, it tacitly acknowledges that women can only be elevated if men are put down. It's a form of feminism that is as insulting to women as it is to men. In the original Star Wars, Leia was an equal partner, no one was belittled, and in that galaxy far, far away, sex was not an issue. But that galaxy has never been so far, far away as it is now. Leia already gave as good as she got back then, rescuing Luke from Cloud City, killing Jabba, and being a true leader of the Resistance. But that's not good enough for the woke wonders at Lucasfilm, where the only good white male is a mocked white male, and this white male has been mocked enough. Fuck you, Lucasfilm. To hell with Disney. I have been calling for a boycott of Lucasfilm for quite a while now. You contemptible little nothings have alienated and mocked your fans for years, and now it's time for fans to strike back. I will say it 1,000 times between now and December. Without respect, we reject. This is our mantra for 2019. This is the battleground where we make our stand. We must ensure that Star Wars Episode 9 fails because the stakes are higher than Star Wars now. If this movie succeeds, it sends a message to all the other studios that they can abuse their fans to their greedy little heart's content, and the fans will still return like battered spouses and open their wallets like good little slaves. Without respect, we reject. But now, with this unspeakably vile perversion of all that's good with Star Wars, with Brie Larson publicly discriminating against white males as if sexism and racism are virtues, Doomcock says enough. A boycott of Star Wars may no longer be adequate. I'm on the verge of saying a boycott of Disney is called for, because Disney is now sanctioning tacitly, if not literally, this discrimination against the fans that made them a success. They don't see that discrimination in any form is unspeakably ugly, but Disney and Lucasfilm and CBS and the BBC all embrace it because for all their alleged social progress, it feels so good to have one handy group to abuse. Gotta have that 2-minute hate in your utopia, isn't that right? Every dictator knows that. But sometimes the hate backfires. It seems undeniable now that Lucasfilm hates men. Well, congratulations, Lucasfilm. Because now we hate you too.